Vivian sat stiffly at the fancy restaurant table, her eyes wide as she looked around. The chandeliers glittered above her, and the waiters moved with the grace of dancers. This was clearly no ordinary dinner spot. This was the kind of place only billionaires like Minho could casually afford. Minho leaned forward, his smile mischievous. "You look nervous." "Don't worry, Vivian. They won't charge you for breathing here." Vivian shot him a sharp look, but the corner of her lips twitched. "I told you I didn't want to come. I'm only here so you'll stop disturbing my work." "Disturbing?" He raised his brows dramatically. "I was dying in that hospital, Vivian. Every time. And only you could save me." She nearly choked on her water. "Dying? You mean faking? Everyone knows you're perfectly fine." Minho placed a hand on his chest, pretending to be wounded. "Ah, so you admit it. You do think about me." Vivian's cheeks warmed. She quickly looked down at her plate, pretending to be interested in the silverware. "Don't be ridiculous. I only think about my patients. All of them." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Then let me be your favorite patient." For a moment, their eyes locked. Vivian's heart skipped, but she quickly broke the gaze, shaking her head. "You're impossible, Minho." The waiter arrived with food, elegant dishes Vivian couldn't even pronounce. She stared at her plate, then at him. "I can't eat this. I don't even know what it is." Minho chuckled and pushed his plate toward her. "Then eat mine. It's just steak. Simple. Just like me." Vivian laughed before she could stop herself. It was the first time she had truly laughed around him, and Minho's eyes lit up with victory. Inside, Vivian felt a tug she couldn't explain. Maybe he wasn't just a spoiled billionaire. Maybe there was something more. The night air was cool, and Seoul's streets glowed with neon lights. Minho opened the car door for Vivian, his usual confident smile never leaving his face. Vivian hesitated for a moment, then slipped inside, her hands folded neatly on her lap. As the car glided through the city, Minho leaned slightly toward her. "So, Vivian," he said softly, "do you like Korea?" Vivian blinked at the question, surprised. She looked out the window at the passing lights. "It's different," she said with a small smile. "Busy, loud, but beautiful." Minho chuckled. "Just like me then. Busy, loud, but beautiful." Vivian rolled her eyes but couldn't hold back a laugh. "You're ridiculous. That's not what I meant." He watched her laugh, his chest tightening in a way he wasn't used to. "I'm glad you're here," he said more seriously this time. "I mean working here, meeting you." Her smile faded into something softer. She shook her head lightly. "You shouldn't say things like that, Mr. Minho. You don't know me." "I want to," he replied simply, his voice low but firm. For the first time, Vivian didn't know what to say. She stared at him for a moment, then quickly looked away, pretending to study the streetlights. The car fell silent, but the air between them was full of unspoken words. When they reached her apartment, Minho rushed out to open her door again. She stepped out slowly, clutching her bag. He leaned against the car, watching her. "Vivian," he said, his tone softer than she had ever heard before, "thank you for tonight." She looked at him, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. "Good night, Mr. Minho," she said quickly before walking away. But as she entered her apartment, she found herself smiling, replaying his words over and over. And Minho, standing by his car, whispered to himself with a grin, "She's already in my heart." The next day, the hospital buzzed with the usual chaos, patients shuffling, nurses running around, doctors barking orders. Vivian had finished her routines and hurried down the hallway to have her lunch. She walked in, surprised to see him there. "Mr. Minho," she gasped. "What are you doing here?" He gave her a boyish smile. "I thought we could have lunch here. Neutral ground. No hospital beds, no excuses." She frowned, crossing her arms. "I told you this isn't a game." Then prove it, he said gently, sliding one tray toward an empty table. Sit, eat, and if you still think I'm just playing, I'll stop bothering you. Vivian hesitated. The cafe wasn't private, the staff and even a few patients' families were watching curiously. Yet something in his tone disarmed her. Finally, with a reluctant sigh, she sat down. They ate quietly at first, the clinking of spoons filling the silence. Vivian tried to avoid his gaze, but every time she looked up, he was already watching her with that same soft expression. "Do you like Korea, guys?" he asked suddenly. She blinked, caught off guard. I do, she admitted, a small smile tugging her lips. Min-suk leaned back, his eyes warm. "Then stay long enough for me to show you why it's worth falling in love with." Vivian's heart skipped. She quickly looked away, but her cheeks betrayed her. For the first time, she couldn't deny the pull between them. That afternoon, the hospital cafe felt strangely warmer than usual. Vivian sat across from Minho, her tray untouched, as he spoke with an ease that made it seem as if they'd known each other for years. He shared small jokes, stories about his childhood, and asked about hers. Every time he laughed, the sound filled the quiet cafe and drew curious glances from other nurses passing by. Vivian tried to remain professional, reminding herself that this was still her patient. Yet, she couldn't deny the strange comfort she felt in his presence. His eyes stayed on her as though she was the only person in the world. But deep inside, she feared he was simply amusing himself, the way wealthy men sometimes did. "Why me?" she finally asked softly, setting her spoon down. "You could have anyone. Why do you keep coming here, Mr. Minho?" He leaned forward, his smile fading into something gentler. "Call me Minho, not Mr. Please. I don't want to be another patient or another rich man in your eyes. I just want to be me." Her heart skipped, but Vivian forced a small, skeptical smile. "Or maybe this is just another game to you, Minho. And I don't play games." For the first time, his expression grew serious, almost pained. "It's not a game, Vivian." His voice carried a weight that made her chest tighten. Still, she looked away, convincing herself she couldn't trust his words, no matter how much her heart wanted to believe them. Vivian had quietly applied for a short leave from the hospital. She told no one, especially not Minho. For days, she wanted space from the whispers in the hospital, space from her own heart that kept betraying her with a smile whenever she saw him. But Minho noticed her absence immediately. He waited in the hospital lounge, expecting to see her walk past with her usual calm smile. She never came. His heart grew restless. On the second day, he grew desperate. He asked the nurses, but they gave no answers. His chest tightened as if something was terribly wrong. Finally, unable to stay away, he drove straight to her apartment. Standing in front of Vivian's small apartment, he knocked several times. He knocked harder, calling her name, his voice trembling with worry. But the door remained closed. The realization hit him she wasn't there. That night, Minho sat in his car outside her apartment, unable to drive away. For the first time, the billionaire who had everything in life felt powerless, because the one person who mattered most had slipped away without a word. Vivian's leave took her away from the buzzing city and hospital chaos. She traveled to a quiet Korean town, where the streets were lined with cherry blossom trees and traditional houses. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe freely, walking calmly through the serene parks and local markets. One afternoon, as she sat on a wooden bench overlooking a calm river, an elderly Korean woman approached her with a gentle smile. The woman, graceful in her hanbok, admired Vivian's polite greetings and warm nature. They struck up a conversation, sharing stories of life, family, and memories of hardship and resilience. The woman told Vivian about her youth, her struggles raising children, and the value of kindness in a cold world. Vivian, in turn, spoke softly about her life in Ghana, her journey as a nurse, and the challenges of being far from home. The bond between them grew naturally, like two souls who had been waiting to meet. For the first time in a long while, Vivian felt understood. The woman reminded her of a grandmother's embrace, warm, safe, and full of wisdom. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in soft orange, Vivian walked back to her guest house with a small smile on her face. The next morning, as Vivian strolled through the small Korean market, she unexpectedly ran into the kind woman again. The woman's face brightened immediately, as if seeing an old friend. They sat together at a quiet cafe overlooking the street, sipping tea. The woman leaned closer, her tone soft but warm. "You know, Vivian, I really like you. There's something about your kindness, the way you listen. I feel so comfortable around you." Vivian smiled shyly, touched by the woman's sincerity. They shared more stories about life, about struggles, about dreams. The woman then confessed she wasn't just a passerby in the city. She, too, had come for a short vacation. Before they parted, the woman gently placed her hand over Vivian's. "When I return home, I would love for you to visit me. Please say yes." Vivian, surprised by how deeply she had connected with this stranger, felt warmth in her heart. She nodded with a genuine smile. "I'd be honored to." And for the first time in a long while, Vivian felt she had found a friend in Korea outside the hospital walls. Minho, on the other hand, had never known a silence so heavy. Each morning, his car would stop in front of Vivian's small apartment building. He would step out, his expensive shoes echoing against the empty street, only to find the door locked and no sign of her. The flower pot by her window, the one he always noticed, looked untouched for days. He went back to his office, but the boardroom seemed strange without her soft smile crossing his mind. Contracts piled up, assistants waited for signatures, yet his pen refused to move. He would stare at his desk, the thought of her absence gnawing at him like an invisible wound. Every morning, he returned to her door again, hoping. Each time, the result was the same, silence. And with every failed attempt, Minho's restlessness deepened, leaving him frustrated and vulnerable in ways he never thought possible. The hospital corridors buzzed with the usual rush of nurses and doctors, but the moment Vivian stepped in, everything felt strangely heavy. After her short vacation, she had expected to quietly slip back into her routine. Yet whispers trailed behind her, colleagues stealing glances, as though they knew she had been missed by someone important. And then she saw him, Minho. He was standing near the entrance of her ward, no longer the confident billionaire who carried himself like he owned the world. His shoulders were slouched, his sharp suit slightly rumpled, his eyes red-rimmed as though he hadn't slept. When his gaze finally found hers, there was no playful smirk, no teasing charm, only raw vulnerability. "Vivian!" His voice cracked, not the polished tone she was used to. He took a small step closer, his hands trembling slightly. "Why did you leave without telling me? Do you know how worried I've been?" Her chest tightened. She wanted to keep her distance, to remind herself he was just a spoiled billionaire who played with her heart. But the sincerity in his eyes disarmed her. For the first time, he wasn't Minho the billionaire. He was just a man, fragile and vulnerable. Vivian swallowed hard, her voice gentle. I just needed time." He let out a shaky breath, and for a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Vivian felt her walls slowly crumbling. Against her will, her heart softened. She had never seen him this way. It was the first time she realized this man wasn't just playing a game. He was truly hurting. The evening air was cool as Vivian stepped out of the hospital gates, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. She saw Minho waiting near his sleek black car, no longer the stubborn patient pretending to be sick, but a man who had been patient for her. For the first time, she didn't avoid his eyes. "Shall we?" he asked softly, offering his hand. Vivian hesitated, but finally placed her hand in his, her guard lowering piece by piece. They arrived at a quiet restaurant, away from the noise of Seoul. The lights were dim, warm, and golden, casting a softness that made Vivian forget she was just a nurse and he a billionaire. As the waiter poured wine, Minho leaned forward. "Vivian," he said gently, "why did you leave without telling me?" "I was scared. Please don't leave like that again." Her lips parted in surprise. Then she smiled. "Minho," she said, "I just needed to clear my head. I'm sorry." "Through dinner." She laughed at his silly stories, and he listened to her dreams of becoming more than just a nurse, her passion for helping people, her love for cooking, her longing to one day open a small clinic back home. By the time they left the restaurant, walking side by side under Seoul's sparkling night sky, something had shifted. Vivian no longer saw him as a stubborn man chasing a game. She saw a man who had been quietly waiting for her heart. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of what could happen next. Vivian lay on her bed after a long day, staring at her phone. She never expected Minho to be so persistent, yet so gentle. That evening, her phone lit up with his name. Hesitating for a moment, she finally picked up. "Vivian," his voice was calm but warm. "I just wanted to hear how your day went." She laughed lightly. "Minho, it's late. Shouldn't you be sleeping?" "Not when I can talk to you," he replied smoothly, and she felt her heart soften at his words. What started as short check-ins grew into hours of conversation. They talked about everything: her life back home in Ghana, the food she missed, his childhood in Korea, the struggles of being wealthy but lonely. He was honest, sometimes even vulnerable, and it surprised her. One night, there was silence on the line before Minho whispered, "Vivian, do you ever feel like we were meant to meet? Like destiny brought us together?" Her heart skipped. She tried to sound calm. "Minho, don't say things like that. You'll only confuse me." But deep down, she couldn't deny that she looked forward to every call, every laugh, every secret they shared in the quiet of the night. One afternoon, Vivian adjusted her scarf nervously as she stood before the elegant iron gates of the house the kind woman from her vacation had invited her to. She had not expected the woman to keep her word. Yet here she was, eager but a little shy. The gates opened, and the woman welcomed her warmly with open arms. "Vivian, you came," she said with a glowing smile. The home was luxurious yet inviting, filled with warmth that reminded Vivian of her grandmother's embrace back in Ghana. They chatted briefly before she was guided into the living room. Just then, heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. Vivian turned and froze. It was Minho. His eyes widened in shock, as if the world had just played a trick on him. He stopped mid-step, his expression caught between disbelief and joy. Vivian's lips parted in surprise, her heart skipping a beat. "Vivian!" His voice was low, filled with surprise. Vivian stood abruptly, her lips parting but no words escaping. "Minho!" Before she could process, the older woman clapped her hands together with joy. "Oh, you both know each other already? How wonderful!" Minho's eyes darted between Vivian and his mother, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on him. He looked broken, vulnerable. "She's the one I've been talking about, Mother, the woman I—" He stopped, his voice trembling. Vivian's breath caught in her throat. The realization hit her like a storm. The kind woman she had grown fond of during vacation was his mother. Her chest tightened. The walls felt like they were closing in. For the first time, she didn't know whether to feel betrayed or destined. The living room was warm and filled with the faint scent of jasmine tea. Vivian sat politely, her hands wrapped around the delicate porcelain cup. She had only come because the kind woman she met during her vacation had invited her. She never imagined the woman would be Minho's mother. Minho himself looked restless, seated at the edge of the couch. His eyes darted between Vivian and his mother, as though he was bracing himself for what might come next. Then suddenly, Mrs. Kong clapped her hands together and beamed. "Ah, Vivian, you are perfect. Such grace, such humility, exactly the kind of woman I've prayed for. Minho, my son, you are truly blessed." Vivian's eyes widened, her teacup nearly slipping from her hand. "Am I? I don't. Mrs. Kong leaned forward, eyes glowing with excitement. No need for modesty. From the moment I met you, I felt it. You belong in this family. We should start preparing for the wedding at once. And please, her voice softened, filled with longing, give me grandchildren soon. I want to hold them before I grow too old. Silence fell. Vivian's face flushed crimson, her heart racing. She had come here thinking she was just making a new friend, not stepping into the role of a future daughter-in-law. Minho's jaw tightened as he glanced at Vivian, torn between relief that his mother approved and guilt for how sudden it all was. He reached forward gently, his hand brushing Vivian's. "Mother," he said softly, his voice steady but careful, "please slow down. This is too much for her." Vivian lowered her gaze, unsure if she should run or stay, her heart confused but strangely touched by the way Minho defended her. That evening, after leaving Mrs. Kang's house, Minho sensed Vivian's silence. She wasn't her usual bright self, and he could feel the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her. Without a word, he drove her to a quiet hilltop cafe overlooking the glowing city below. The night sky was painted with stars, and the cool breeze whispered around them, as if the universe itself was listening. Vivian sat near the window, her fingers nervously intertwined. Her voice was low, almost fragile. "Your mother, she talked about marriage, children. It felt so real, too real. I don't know if I'm ready for all that." Minho leaned forward, his gaze never leaving her face. There was no trace of the usual playful charm in his eyes, only raw sincerity. "Vivian, listen to me. Forget my mother's words for now. I need you to hear mine. Do you know what those weeks felt like when you were gone? Every morning, I found myself at your apartment door, hoping you would return. I couldn't work, couldn't eat, my heart was restless because it was searching for you." Vivian's lips trembled, her chest tightening with emotion. "Minho, you don't understand. I thought you were just playing with me. A man, like you could have anyone. Why me?" His hand reached across the table, holding hers firmly. His voice shook with unguarded truth. "Because you are the only one who makes me feel alive. You are the calm when my world spins too fast. You see me as a man, not just a name or money. I love you, Vivian, not for what you do, not for how you look, though you are the most beautiful to me, but for who you are. And I can't live without you." Tears filled Vivian's eyes, blurring the city lights behind him. Her heart, which she had guarded so carefully, finally broke open. She whispered through the lump in her throat, "I love you too, Minho. I fought it, I denied it, but my heart, it has always been yours." For a long moment, silence held them, thick with truth and trembling with love. Then Minho stood, pulling her into his arms, holding her as though he would never let go. Under the soft golden glow of the cafe lights, with the stars above blessing their moment, they sealed their confession in the warmth of each other's embrace. 6 months later, the church bells rang softly over Seoul as the sun painted the morning sky in gold. Vivian stood before the mirror in her white gown, her natural curls arranged in a delicate bun, a veil flowing gently behind her. She pressed her trembling hands over her heart, whispering to herself that this was real. Love had finally found her in the most unexpected place. Outside, the venue was filled with joy. The hospital staff, doctors, and nurses who once whispered gossip about her now smiled warmly, waiting to witness the union. Some even wiped away tears, remembering how far she had come. The hall was decorated with white roses, cherry blossoms, and soft candlelight, a blend of Ghanaian and Korean culture beautifully merged. When the music began, Vivian walked down the aisle. All eyes turned to her, but her gaze was fixed only on Minho. He stood at the altar in a sleek black tuxedo, his eyes glistening as he fought back tears. He had seen her in so many moments, tired, smiling, worried, even angry, but today she was the very picture of grace and love. As they exchanged vows, Minho's voice broke. Vivian, you walked into my life as a nurse, but today, you stand before me as my everything. I promise to love you beyond every storm, every doubt, and every tomorrow. Vivian's tears rolled as she whispered, "You gave me more than love, Minho. You gave me a home in your heart. I choose you today and forever." The priest declared them husband and wife, and the hall erupted in applause. Minho kissed her deeply, sealing their love, while hospital staff cheered, throwing petals in the air. Later, during the reception, Minho's mother took the microphone with a joyful smile. "I once dreamed of seeing my son happy, and today that dream has come true. Vivian, welcome to this family. May you give us not just grandchildren, but a love story that will last through generations." The crowd laughed warmly, and Minho pulled Vivian into his arms, twirling her across the dance floor. Everyone that attended was served various kinds of food, including the Ghanaian jollof rice, and was served to everyone except those who are not our subscribers. Their laughter filled the air, blending with the music, the petals, and the glow of 1,000 lights. And as they looked into each other's eyes, nurse and patient, woman and man, hearts once restless but now complete, they knew this was not just a wedding. It was the beginning of forever. Please do well to subscribe so you can be served at our next wedding party. If you love this story, kindly comment, share, and tell us where you are watching from. This is Afro Love Diaries, where Heartbeat tells a story.